Bentley at the 1. Bentley has an angle, and he's got just the kicker to beat. Bentley at the 30, the 25, the 15, a 99-yard kickoff return.
Over the top. Oh, stuffed by Bertrand. Yikes.
Now it's time for Illini Drive, your home on the way home for Illini sports every Monday at 6. Only on Champagne's Alternative, WPGU 107.1 FM.
Joey Gelman, host, Chicago, Illinois.
Steve Bourbon, co-host, St. Charles, Illinois.
Sam Sherman, co-host, Wilmette, Illinois.
Jeff Omer, social media guru, Naperville, Illinois. Torrance Surreal, producer, Shy City, baby.
Blunt fakes the draw, protected in the pocket, takes a shot for Allison, in stride for the Illinois touchdown. It's a 60-yarder, perfectly placed from Wes Lund to the junior transfer Allison.
Welcome everyone to Illini Drive, those highlights from the Illinois football game this weekend, which of course we will get to. So this is your home, on the way home, for Illini Sports Breakdown. Today we're going to talk Illinois football. Catch up with Illinois linebacker Mason Monheim, talk a little Tracy Abrams and his ACL injury, as well as NFL news and notes on what's been a busy week and a half, not all positive, for the NFL. Text line is up and running, 414-53-DRIVE, 414-533-7483. Jeff Omer can read those and may get those on the air. Also interact with us at Illini Drive, that's our Twitter handle, to stay up to date with the show. And we're giving away football tickets at the end of the show today for Illinois against Texas State this weekend, this Saturday, 3 p.m. This Saturday, 3 p.m. at Memorial Stadium. So please make sure to call after the show to win those. So we start with a Jeff Omer hiccup in the background, and then we move along to Illinois football. Illinois losers this weekend, 44-19 to the Washington Huskies, and a tough one for Illinois. Just didn't really seem to get out of the gate at all to start this one, and took a couple shots late when they should have maybe done that a little sooner. But all in all, a tough loss, one we kind of expected, but you would like to see a little better showing, especially with the first two wins and the numbers Lunt put up those first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in the offense. I mean, they gave away 14 points with the 2 turnovers, and really, other than throwing to Allison, they didn't do anything all day. I think the O-line gave up 6 sacks. I know Pat Flavin's been out at right tackle, but the offense really didn't come to play today. And I know I love to bash on Sam Sherman's defense over there, but they held their own. I mean, that they get 44 points doesn't look great, but I mean the offense didn't really give them any chance to win this game.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think there were a couple other concerning things, like you said, were the sacks, but also there were a couple other examples now that we've seen of Westland being under pressure and making some poor decisions, and a lot of that is tough. When you're not getting any time in the pocket, I'd have to imagine that it's tough to make the best decisions, those quick decisions. But that's something that I think is going to be interesting to track going forward for this team, seeing, because this is it's one of those storylines that you kind of hope don't emerge, but might be emerging with him of making these questionable decisions. But again, his game did improve a little bit as it went on, and his kind of connection with Geronimo Allison is a positive for this team. So it'll be an interesting thing to see. But yeah, definitely, like Steve said, sort of surprising to see that the defense was actually slightly more impressive than the offense.
Yeah, things just kind of snowballed on them in a hurry. I mean, they drive. The Illinois offense had a great first drive. They stalled at the end, got a field goal, and then right after that, it was 75-yard touchdown. Then it was a pick six. Then another touchdown. There's a safety in there somewhere, but I mean, by that point, does it really matter?
Hey, that safety was the best part of the game.
I mean, I love 35-5. I love that.
I did the safety dance. I'm not gonna lie, it was a fun one.
Yeah, I mean
I mean, and to credit Washington though, they had some guys. I know that their defense had given up a lot of points in their previous games, but there were a couple of guys in that team who were some real playmakers, and who I hadn't really thought about going in. The guy Shaq, what was his name? Shaq Thompson, who I don't know where this guy's been in their first 2 games, letting up that many points, but he's like a freak out there, and they had some guys on that defense that certainly made it tougher, but. Still some disappointing things for these guys.
And it's just frustrating when you look at, going back to what you said about Lunt. You're so used to a guy in Shieldhouse the past few years in this Illinois team that can find those quick holes, make those decisions, and scramble out of it. And, Lunt's not nearly as mobile as Shieldhouse is, but he has to be aware of, okay, the pocket's collapsing on me. There is this hole at the middle. I got to just run, because that's going to be something more positive.
Or throw it away or something.
Or throw it away.
Yeah,
he's got to make that split decision, and I think that probably comes with time. We forget he's been out of football for about a year and a half or so between injuries and transfer time. So the growing pains are there, but he's got to take advantage of those holes in the offensive line, because it'll take a little while for that to shore up, especially with a couple of guys still injured and moving along, and especially with, it's 2 weeks in a row, but still a quote-unquote new center and Joe Spencer right in front of him. So a little bit of shuffling across the line there as well.
Well, yeah, we talked about this last week, but with Flavin out, then it reshuffles the whole line.
Right.
Because Heights goes from left guard to right tackle, Hill goes from center to left guard, then you bring in Joe Spencer, who's a left-handed center. You can't go under center with a left-handed center. But yeah, the offensive line wasn't great, but there were times when he was in the pocket, there was time to throw, and he needs to get rid of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think on that fumble, it was a good example. He needs to get rid of the ball, find a check down, run, do something. He needs that clock needs to go off in his head and just get rid of it.
And what was so difficult was just the fact that they got down so much so early that they kind of just became one-dimensional, and so even if he had a chance to get out of there, they knew he was passing.
Mm-hmm.
They knew they were going, which again is another week here, detriment to the running game again, and you just look at the first couple possessions for Illinois here. Interception, punt, fumble, punt.
That's not great.
You're not going to win many games.
They could do a little better
doing that. So yeah, it's a difficult stretch. But what frustrated me a little bit was the fact that there wasn't really as big of an adjustment, at least at the end of the first half or out of halftime offensively for this team, and where they were throwing the ball. You saw a lot of crossing patterns, close up, short dink and dunk kind of safety, whether it was Dudek or a couple of guys going across the middle. But you had the one touchdown to Geronimo Allison where he beats everyone deep. And going into this game, you knew Washington was down a couple cornerbacks in injury-wise. So that should be the split-second decision on Cubitt going into that. Go, hey, we got a wide-open game here if we go deep down the field or to the outside. And you rarely saw that, and it wasn't really adjusted for. I was just surprised because we've seen such progress with this offense, whether it's just putting up numbers or making those in-game adjustments. And I was really surprised in that big of a game as it was on Saturday, those adjustments weren't made. And
with in-game adjustments, coming out of the half especially, and you mentioned it, this wasn't a close game, at halftime, which is all the more reason. If it's a close game, you maybe want to stick with your game plan, even if you're behind in the game. But it wasn't, and for that reason, it leaves you open to kind of try out new things. And they still didn't test those defensive backs for Washington. Except with the Allison touchdown, which worked, and to see them kind of not kind of go to the well some more with that was a little bit surprising, especially because really, what did they have to lose at that point?
And one thing, maybe I'll go a little bit off the rails here, but one thing that
you're allowed,
that is frustrating to hear if you're an Illinois fan is at Beckman's press conference today. He said multiple times, "Well, we won the second half 7-6," and it's like the game's over at that point. The first couple weeks we've heard, nothing but confidence from this team that, there was never a doubt we were going to lose when we were down. We're at complete faith. I think I wish that they would just, I kind of, with this game, they would take it as kind of a gut punch game and say, all right, we need to get better. Like, I don't think they should be focusing on that they won garbage time. Like, they need to worry about that they were down 30 in the second quarter. And it doesn't seem like Beckman, maybe that's his job to spin it that way, but he just doesn't seem like to be focusing on getting better,
You're absolutely right. I think, and he did stress that a lot, as you said, in the press conference. And, he wanted his guys to know that and everything. And it's like, at the end of the day, like you said, if the game is over and if you win the second half and you lose the game, that doesn't mean anything, because you could do that all season long. You could win as many second halves as you want, but if you get so badly beaten in the first half, well, then it doesn't matter. And that's the kind of stuff where, like you said, sometimes a team needs that gut punch. I mean, this is going to the NFL, but the Chicago Bears kind of got that, it seems, in week 1 to come out and win yesterday. But going back to Illinois, I mean, sometimes it's those games that you get beaten and you just on pretty much every level, and you can go out and you can kind of go back together with his troops and figure it out and try and find success going forward.
Now, maybe they are doing that, behind closed doors, and Beckman feels the need to stress positivity in a program that.
I know it might be a corny word, but love is out there.
Love is out there. It's out there for all of us, Torrance. I hope we can find it.
I don't know. I think that, like, it could be going on behind closed doors, but I think this is a fan base that would like to see a little anger. I mean, they're 2-1. It's not like, but it could get a lot worse. And when that does happen, or if that happens, I don't think the positivity is going to help him, secure anything for the future. Let's just say.
Yeah.
No, you want to see that fire, and it's that reality check. It happened last year too. The Week 3 game against Washington was a huge game, and then there wasn't that response afterwards. You just hope, coming out of this one, that response is really there. And like you said, maybe going on behind closed doors, but to dwell on the little things like winning a second half is not what you need to do. You definitely need to take the positives from the game. That's for sure. And you can see a little bit of that on certain plays. They did. Still rushing is an issue, but defensively looking better. So you can take that and going into this next one against Texas State. But yeah, you got to see a little more fire from this team, and you'd like to see it going into this next week.
I would just like to note there was a Riley O'Toole sighting.
We were treated to seeing Riley O'Toole.
Yeah.
With the clear visor.
And
he thinks he's Marcus Mariota.
Exactly. Yeah, and he was running out there. He was
busted spin moves.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
But seriously, what in the world is he doing at that end of the game? Because I'm just garbage time. You can call it whatever you want, but I would think a guy like Wes Lunt, who's only been in your offense for 3 games now, needs all the reps he can get no matter the score, or if you're not redshirting Aaron Bailey, stick him in there and let him play and run some things, because there's no future for Riley O'Toole on this team. He's not the next guy up. He's in his last waning days as an Illini.
And I don't like the thing of like, well, he may, this, I don't think this was their thought process, but just, well, he might not play the whole season at any point. Well, that doesn't mean you play him there. I mean, and it's not like it meant much, but to not have, again, if Bailey rather is redshirting, whatever that situation is, but why Bailey's not in there, or like you said, why not just have Lunt out there? I mean, I get taking quarterbacks out, but to bring in Riley O'Toole, who, sorry Riley, not a whole lot of significance on this year's team.
He's never come on the show now.
Well, no, I mean, it just on the depth chart even, most likely, and so I mean, barring injury, you just wonder why you don't give your new guys some more reps.
And it was a Riley O'Toole moment to end the game. Instead of running out of bounds again, another play, he busts out the spin move and tries to get more, like 2 more yards, and the clock runs out.
Yeah.
And the emphasis was on running. So if you're using a guy like that for running, if you're, like I said, if you're not redshirting Bailey, put Bailey in.
You have a pretty good running quarterback, a dual threat guy.
Yeah. He's somewhere on the sidelines, I think.
I mean, I know it's the end of the game and we shouldn't worry about it. I just feel like just when you're trying to still grow as a football team, you either keep all the guys in there, let them go through the trenches, and then it becomes a full 60-minute game of reality check, and you bring it on.
And he was running a lot. It's not like he was like giving the wide receivers some pat throws or anything. I mean, it was like Riley doing it all himself. So it's like at that point, really though, like, what's the point? I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just.
I think we've reached our Riley O'Toole quota.
Yeah.
For the week. But I think Gmo took a really big step this week. I mean, obviously the numbers speak for themselves. Now, he didn't grade out. Beckman said he needed to work on blocking a little more.
Of course.
But I think we've talked about having a number 1 guy. I think he's shown that he can do it. I mean, he's the deep threat. He's got the size. I mean, his hands are obviously great. That catch in the back of the end zone was phenomenal. I mean, I think he's taken a step, and we've already seen what Mikey Dudek can do with Mikey. So, I mean, yeah, I think that was one huge takeaway from this game.
Yeah, he's really impressive. And, I mean, numbers-wise, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, again, going over 100 yards for him. So it's nice to see that when you have a growing offense, you're able to find a guy like Lunt and Allison that it really seemed to be clicking early on. And, you look at Beckman and the recruiting record, and, a normal recruiting-wise, it hasn't been the greatest, but when you look at transfers and JUCOs, these are the guys that really are making the core of your team right now and are doing it well.
Yeah, I mean, and Geronimo, all season long, he's going to be a mismatch no matter who they play. Or, well, he should be a mismatch, I should say. And what is he? He's 6'3", I want to say. And, he's got the height, he's got some good speed, he's got good hands. And that's going to be a problem. So, for West to have a guy that he can kind of maybe go to this whole season as like a bailout guy, a downfield threat, if they ever do end up trying to oppose defensive backs like they didn't do this past week, that's going to be huge for this team. And he did show in this game a whole flashes against a good Washington team. The defense is questionable, but they did show up in this game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with him and the rest of that young receiving core.
Yeah, and I know it's hard to key on one guy in Cubit's offense, but I would have liked to see them try and get Allison the ball more. I mean, he still only had 6 catches. I mean, that just he's hot. He's got a mismatch right now. Try and just work that mismatch until they take it away.
Just try it out. Just see what. I mean, if something, just go to him, and if until it doesn't work, and then figure something out. But until then, let's just, I think that they should kind of just see what he can do, to his full potential.
I agree.
Absolutely. Well, we got just a few minutes left here, so quickly, thoughts for this upcoming weekend against Texas State, team that puts up 65 points week 1, then loses to Navy last weekend on 35-21. So overall thoughts, just it's another non-conference game gearing up towards before Big Ten. 3 o'clock start, a matinee event. What are we thinking for Saturday?
Well, their stats were a little bit skewed after week 1. They were the number 1 total offense, number 6 total defense after week 1. But I mean, with this Illinois team, they're going to be a test. I mean, I don't think there's any team that Illinois can blow out soundly until they show me otherwise. So I think it'll be a test. I think it'll be like weeks 1 and 2. It'll be close, and we'll see if Illinois makes the plays. But they're definitely playing a dangerous game in the first half by not starting fast and getting in a hole.
Yeah, I mean, if they continue that trend, like you said, it's going to be a close game. I do think Illinois is going to come out on top in this one, going into Big Ten play in a couple of weeks. 3-1 going into Big Ten play is fine. It's kind of on the track that they are hoping to be.
That's what you put before the season. That's what you chalk it.
Exactly. Yeah, and then a win against Washington would have been obviously helping that along. But I don't think many people were expecting that one, factoring all that in.
Well, Stephen Bourbon was able to catch up with Illinois linebacker Mason Monheim just before the show, so we'll get his thoughts on the Illinois weekend and the upcoming matchup against Texas State. This is Illini Drive on WPGU 107.1.
This is Wayne Randazzo from 670 The Score in Chicago, and you're listening to Illini Drive.
Welcome back in here to Illini Drive, your home on the way home for Illini Sports. We're going to jump here to Stephen Bourbon's interview with Mason Monheim earlier today.
All right, so I'm Steve Bourbon here on Illini Drive with Mason Monheim. Mason, how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Pretty good. All right, so coming off this game against Washington, obviously not the outcome you guys were hoping for, but I guess kind of take me through your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Beautiful stadium, but yeah, we came up short. Too many big plays, got in the hole early. I felt like we could get out of it, but ball didn't really roll our way. They were the better team that day.
Mm-hmm. And those kind of big plays, things kind of snowballed on you guys a little bit. Is that kind of tough to come back when it's, they're on you in a hurry?
Yeah, I mean, it was a matter of a few minutes and we were down 3 scores with the big play, the touchdown pass, the 2 fumble recovery, and then the pick 6. It's hard to rebound from that. We definitely have to come out faster and eliminate those type of plays.
Mm-hmm. And, giving up 40 points, I mean, obviously the defense didn't give up all those, but, I mean, do you feel like you guys are still making strides as a defense, together as the season goes on?
I do. I do think we're making strides. Yeah, I mean, they're a great team. They're a good team. We knew they were going to make plays. We knew it's tough to go in there and win a game in their stadium. But yeah, I mean, we're making strides. You can tell. I mean, it's a different feeling in the practice. preparing for the game and during the game. We never really felt like the score might have said it, but we never really felt like we were out of the game. I felt like if the offense started to get rolling, that we had a great shot at coming back in the game, but for whatever reason, just didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. And Coach Beckman mentioned multiple times that that you guys won the second half, 7-6. Is that kind of what you guys are taking away from this one, or are you focused on a lot?
I mean, you can take away whatever you want, but at the end of the day, we lost 44-19. Turnovers happen, big plays happen, and it's how you respond to those, or how you decrease those plays. We fell short. We lost that game. There's no need to dwell on it. You learn from mistakes and you move forward into this week.
Mm-hmm. And you've been starting pretty much. Have you started every game of your career? Is that?
Right? I didn't start my first 2 games.
Okay. I mean, but you've been starting, more or less, your whole career here. I mean, is that kind of what you expected when you came here, or is you kind of surprise yourself a little bit?
People always ask me that. Freshmen coming in always ask me how it was. I never really came in thinking I was going to start or play as a true freshman or play this much. I knew that I was just going to stick to what I've been doing. I work hard. I trust my teammates, and I have faith in God and the plan He has for me. And for whatever reason, the ball has rolled in my favor, kept me pretty healthy, and have just blessed me with the opportunity to play this game at this great university, and it's an unbelievable experience. Win or lose, it's a great experience.
Mm-hmm. All right, now a really important question here is the hair and the beard. And when was the last time you cut your hair?
See, Mike Svatina, me and him have been growing it out together. He hasn't cut his at all. I trimmed mine this past summer because it was just way out of control.
Yeah.
I kind of regret it, but it's grown back. So I trimmed a little bit then. The beard, I just, I usually grow it out pretty thick in the winter, my little hunting beard. But I kind of keep the beard throughout the whole year. It's kind of just been a signature, who I am a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. So it's you and Svatina. Is Barton not in on that, or is he trying to get in on that?
Barton kind of started the whole hair off. Coming in freshman year, he had it for a while. He's now trimmed it. And he tries to grow the beard. Decent beard.
Not as good as yours.
Not as full. Yeah. He tries. I give him an A on the effort.
Okay. All right. I guess, so you're from Ohio, right? Are you NFL guy? Are you Browns, Bengals, or?
I'm not. See, people always ask me that, who I root for. I don't really have a team.
No.
My dad and my brothers, they're all Pittsburgh fans. My dad was born in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. But my uncles, they're all Browns fans. But I don't really have a one team. Okay. I like to watch kind of players. Mm-hmm. I like to watch Luke Kuechly for Carolina.
That guy's incredible.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I got to meet him when he was at Boston College. Went on a visit. Great guy. I like to watch guys like Patrick Willis. I kind of stick to the linebackers. Watch them, watch their film, see what they do.
Mm-hmm. So do you watch? I guess do you watch like the NFL more as a fan or as a player watching it, analytically and trying to get better?
I think I watch it as a fan during the season. It's just the highest level of this game. Guys are unbelievable. But like this summer when we didn't have a ton of film to watch, that's when I'd dive into watching some NFL film, pick up some tips or whatnot.
Okay. I guess with Texas State coming up, their offensive coordinator used to be here. I think Mike Schultz. Is that right?
Yeah, I heard something. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I heard something like that.
Okay. I guess, do you know kind of what they're trying to do? I mean, you guys have faced all different styles here in the first 3 games.
Yeah, we've definitely seen multiple different styles of offenses. I think they'll try and attack us where we've been hit in the last 3 weeks. I hear I've seen their quarterback's pretty good athlete. Running backs are pretty good skill, but it doesn't matter who's coming in the stadium. We need a great week of practice, a great preparation, and go out there Saturday with a little vengeance. Get the W in a good way in preparation for the week after. But we need to focus on what we're doing, and things will be okay.
Mm-hmm. And Coach Beckman breaks the season up into quarters. 2-1 in the first quarter. Is that kind of what you guys think you can replicate going into the rest of the season here?
Oh, for sure. 2-1, not where we wanted to be. We definitely wanted to be 3-0, and we definitely felt like we had that opportunity or a great shot at getting there. But yeah, 2-1, it's okay. Coming up this next quarter, we have Texas State, Nebraska, and I think Purdue. Definitely great opportunity to get 3 wins. But we're focused on Texas State first, and then we'll focus on the next 2.
Then Texas State, they're the Bobcats. You guys faced Youngstown Penguins and Hilltoppers. I mean, is this by design here, or I mean, what's going on with their nicknames here?
It's I don't really know. It's a different style of nicknames, I guess. I guess we're trying to hit all levels of teams here.
Got to cover all your bases.
Yeah, got to cover it all.
Our thanks to Mason Monheim and our own Steve Bourbon for that interview. Some fun stuff there, a little football, a little mascots.
Feathered and lethal Mason Monheim.
A little beard, which I can't grow, as you can see on UPTV now. It's miserable.
I appreciate the effort, though.
It's Patches O'Houlihan. It's just, it's horrible.
You see, I'm still trying to get my sideburns to connect. It's like it gets right here and then it just stops. I can't do it.
Yeah, Sam's got us all beat. He'll be.
Yeah, but even mine's not that good, so it's none of us really.
But we on TV now, so you can check us out.
See, we were supposed to transition from football to basketball. We've transitioned from football to beards to basketball, the triple threat. So, with that said, really quick here. We got a little bit of time before our next break. Wanted to talk a little bit about Tracy Abrams.
3 points, though, for Illinois in the second half. Abrams trying to change it. The breakdown. The shot is good and a foul.
Sadly, we won't be hearing that this year as he's got a torn ACL. As many of you have heard, we weren't on the air in time last week to break it down. So I guess just starting off, what does this mean for this year's Illinois team, the fact that you're losing a senior veteran point guard?
I think there's a lot of people who have different viewpoints on this. There's kind of the camp who thinks that it's going to really impact the team, and the camp that maybe not so much. And I'm on the not so much side. I mean, I feel terrible for Tracy. Missing a year of basketball can't be a great time, and it's not going to help the team certainly. But I don't think it's going to be a devastating injury for the team. And the reason I say that is I think you've got a couple guys. You've got Ahmad Starks who can come on and play some more minutes. You've got maybe they'll try out Aaron Cosby at the point guard position. We'll see. And then of course Jalen Tate coming in there and playing more time than he would usually. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think that defensively you're going to take a hit for sure because that's really what Tracy brought most to the table. But from an offensive standpoint, I think you're going to see an improvement because guys like Starks and Cosby, they can flat out score. That's what they were kind of brought on the team to do. Now they're going to have to take a much larger role on this team as primary point guards, or at least Starks will. But I still see this team being successful like I thought before the Abrams injury. It's not going to be helpful because you're losing a senior point guard, and that's not going to help them. But I certainly don't think it's going to affect them to the point where they're going to be too bad because of it.
Well, here's a real shocker. I disagree with you. I've got a column running tomorrow, shameless plug, about this whole situation. I think it will affect them. I think Tracy is the second most important player on this team. If you're to lose anyone on it to injury, I think Egwu would be the worst. I think Tracy's number 2, just because he's the heart and soul of the team. He's their best perimeter defender, pretty much by far. I mean, and now at point guard, it's just a lot of unproven commodities. You've got Jalen Tate, who was, I think he was 1 of 23 from 3 last year. He didn't make a 3 in conference. And
LaTulip made more than him.
If LaTulip plays meaningful minutes, things have gone horribly wrong.
No LaTulip, no more Riley O'Toole talk. We can't do that.
Sorry, guys.
But, I mean, and then you look at Starks. I mean, he's Oregon State's all-time three-point leading shooter.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great shooter, but he's 5'9", maybe.
I think he's shorter than that.
I think he is too. I mean, he was wearing his heels. But I mean, defensively, it's just going to be a black hole at point guard now. I mean, with Starks is undersized. Jalen Tate got bullied last year. He needs to put on weight, and hopefully he has. And so, as far as running a team, I think Tate can do that. Distributing, but you can sag so far off him on offense, it's going to clog the lane for Rice and for Nunn, and it's going to clog everything up on offense. Tracy, you at least have to respect him from 3. He was about 30% in conference last year from 3. But I think it's a pretty big hit.
Now, my question is, well, first off, the Starks waiver debacle last year helps you this year because now he's eligible for a little while.
A little silver lining there.
So, but my question is, does this hurt recruiting-wise for next year? You're trying to pursue Juwan Evans, point guard, would be the top-tier guy probably on this team for the next the 2015 season. And so I'm just always curious, okay, yes, you like to have Abrams, but does that deter a guy like Evans saying, oh, they have this senior veteran point guard that knows this offense, knows this team, am I going to get minutes? And in my perspective, I would say Evans would be the starter from day one if he can prove it, because on paper he looks good enough, and in video highlights and what we've seen on tape, he looks good enough. And then it's 10 times better if you have a guy like Evans coming in, starting like that if you get him, and then have a guy like Abrams and Nunn off your bench as the two role players, six men.
You think he would start over Tracy Abrams?
Abrams not going to start his last year. I'm sorry, going on the bench his last year.
Especially
no
way.
Especially coming off
like it, but if the talent
started for three plus years.
If Tracy's going to be on the bench, he's not going to be at U of I his final season.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it goes the other way. I think it dissuades Juwan Evans because, Gross's main pitch has to be
instant minutes.
Keys to the kingdom from days one. I mean, now you're waiting a full year when Tracy's going to get 30 minutes a game like he has the past 3 seasons. Right. I don't think you can relegate him to the bench just for a freshman.
And this isn't a knock to Tracy, but I sort of think, I'm not 100% convinced that, so a red shirt, or medical red shirt, and then come back. I'm not 100% convinced that he will be at U of I when he does that. I don't know your thoughts.
Well, he can do the 5th-year transfer.
Yes.
Like Illinois has benefited from with like McLaurin and Maniscalco.
He can do that somewhere else, and that's why I think that maybe there's going to be a discussion there at some point between the coaching staff and him, saying, maybe it would be best. I mean, in so many words, to take your talents elsewhere, and because I think it will. I mean, of course, the biggest sell that Illinois had against these big dogs out there was the fact that they could start. That if you come in as a freshman, you're gonna start. It's just flat. I mean, you're gonna start because they don't have any other like legitimate options in that way. So, I don't see. I mean, he could come back and he's certainly talented enough to start that time over like a freshman. But at the same time, I just I don't know if he'll be back here.
But then if you miss out on Evans, like you've missed out on a lot of those big recruits, then you still have Tracy for next year.
Right.
So, I mean, we're talking
it's
about, we're already assuming, Evans is just in the bag. But he's got to get.
I'm just saying, looking at the future of recruiting, it's just like, it's kind of a difficult position to be in. Because if you were able to add an addition like that, there's a logjam now at what was a wide open starting point guard slot for a freshman.
And even numbers wise, like say you do get Juwan Evans, that's still one less scholarship you have to another guy like Elijah Thomas or Jalen Coleman. Okay, other guys. So
one thing I learned is that recruiting is stressful, man. Especially it's like every year.
Why do you think Gross is bald?
Yeah.
Well,
like the thing with Cliff Alexander, it's like it's almost the same old story, the same old fairy tale. But just going back to your point, Steve, about Abrams, I just think that Gross is so highly on Abrams, just really from his toughness and his togetherness, what he brings to the team. That I honestly just can't see him going anywhere else. But it's going to be exciting seeing those guys like Cosby play because I remember I was doing a little bit of research over the summer. Cosby had a real good offseason. And I think he played overseas.
He was on Team USA team.
Yeah, he played in China, too, and I think he averaged like over 18 points per game. And that's somebody I knew they riled about, in the offseason who's going to be pretty big this year. Him and Starks. Starks a little undersized, but, they say he's pretty good ball handling-wise. So,
Well, it should be interesting to see what happens down the road, but we still have a lot of football season left before we start talking basketball. Reminder, call in at the end of the show, 337-1071, 217-337-1071. We have 2 pairs of Illinois football tickets to give away for this weekend, Saturday at 3 p.m. against Texas State. We're going to take a quick break here. Then we're going to dive into the NFL, and what a week it was last week for the NFL, and not all positive. You're listening to Champaign's Alternative, WPGU 107.1.
This is Clark Kellogg of CBS Sports, and you are listening to the Illini Drive. Enjoy.
Welcome back into Illini Drive. This is your home on the way home for Illini Sports. Remember, keep calling in. The phone line is lighting up already, 217-337-1071, for your chance to win a pair of Illinois football tickets. So we're going to start off here talking a little about the NFL, but not the positive side. Right after we went on the air last week, the Adrian Peterson news came out about his charges on child abuse, domestic violence with his son, and the Vikings deactivated him this past weekend and now have reinstated him. And we got a few audio clips to play for you here. First off, Vikings general manager in today's presser earlier.
My mom did the best job she could do, raising 7 kids by herself. But there are thousands of things that I have learned since then that my mom was wrong.
Yes. Thank you.
It's the 21st century. My mom was wrong. She did the best she could, but she was wrong about some of that stuff she taught me. And I promise my kids I won't teach that mess to them. You can't be the kid to make them do what they want to do.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thousands of things we have learned since then. I don't care what, we in a climate right now, I don't care what it is. Take them off the dang on field. Because you know what, as a man, that's the only thing we really respect. We don't respect no women. We don't respect no kids. The only thing Roger and them do, take them off the field, because they respect that.
Apology there, that was Chris Carter on NFL Sunday Countdown earlier this weekend. Very emotional there on his opinion, and I'm just kind of confused on the NFL here and why they're not taking as much initiative, but more importantly, confused by the Vikings reactivated AP for this upcoming weekend. So first, let's get your guys' thoughts, and then we'll break it down a little more. I got a couple statements here I'd like to read, and one more bump here.
Well, the Vikings activated him this week because they lost by 30 last week.
Yep.
Right.
That's what it breaks down to. Literally, their offense was anemic without him. So, they investigated the situation. He's okay to play now. That's what it seems like to me.
It's why is he playing this Sunday? Well, I'm not sure. I mean, like from what they're saying, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. From a NFL, from the football standpoint on the field, yeah, of course. They know that they can't, that offense doesn't run without Adrian Peterson. And so, of course, conveniently now they'll let the court decide everything and until they have to actually make a decision about these things, and they'll kind of brush it off to the side. But yeah, it's another kind of an embarrassing situation for the NFL now 2 weeks in a row. And this is, and of course right now I'm just seeing this. There's not a whole lot on it yet, but apparently this is just allegedly, but apparently Adrian Peterson's being accused now of beating another one of his sons. And this is a mess. And the Vikings, in my opinion, handled this very poorly. Kind of, you deactivate him, good, but then to activate him the next week. Well, what was the point of deactivating him the first week? Could it then say that you're just doing it to kind of look at all the information? Well, then leave him in if you're just going to look at all the information and put him right back in the next week.
It's like they want to have their cake and eat it too. They got the good press. Oh, we deactivated him. We're a good organization. But then they're getting him back 1 week later, so they don't hurt too badly on the field. I just don't get it. What changed in a week as we investigate this? If you're gonna, and I'm not sure where the NFL is on this. I mean, Goodell's asleep at the wheel or something. Yeah. But I mean, it's just a horrible, horrible situation. With a lot of these guys all at the same time. I mean, there's no place for beating women. There's no place for beating kids. Like, I don't get why this is such a problem. and it's just infuriating to me that this is happening.
And by the way, he admitted to it. I mean, Adrian Peterson turned himself in. He detailed essentially what had been going on. There's no real. I mean, of course it'll go to the courts and everything, but on the Vikings end of things, hold him out. There's no reason. I mean, there's reason to play him from a football perspective because their offense is horrendous without him.
Yep.
But from everything else, from every other angle on this, there's no reason to play him if really their reasoning, if what they're saying is that they're waiting for the courts to decide.
Real quick, can we play that Vikings clip from earlier today from their presser?
We didn't know where we were at on Friday. We found out about this Friday afternoon. We wanted to take the weekend to step back as an organization and we felt it was best not only for this organization but for our football team and for Adrian to take care of everything personally he had to take care of over the weekend. We continued to gather as much information as we could, and that's where we're at as of today.
So with the Vikings this morning, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. We had the same argument last week about all Ray Rice stuff, and we started off Monday with the Ray Rice fiasco and all that goes on with it, and the video being viral, and how the NFL is just digging themselves a hole. Then you ended on Friday with this Peterson news, and now potentially another one, according to a couple Twitter sources, of another one of his children. And it's just amazing to me that these guys are still allowed in the league. And granted, there's been a couple domestic violence rules updated, and Roger Goodell created a new committee this morning, I believe, brought 4 women on board to serve as more of a guiding voice in domestic violence issues. But, I mean, when you have a guy with Adrian Peterson, he said here, disciplining my son like I was disciplined. That's like rule 1 of being a victim of this kind of treatment, is the fact that, I do what my father did to me and what he did to him. And
it doesn't make it okay.
Right. It's a vicious cycle. And I just want to check in here because also, with the domestic violence thing, as we talked about last week, the new rules trying to be implemented, first offense 6 games, second offense lifetime ban. And so I just printed out the second half of that new rule. So first offense will be subject to a suspension of 6 weeks without pay. Mitigating circumstances will be considered, and more severe discipline will be imposed if there are aggravating circumstances such the presence or use of a weapon, choking, repeated striking, or when the act is committed against a pregnant woman or in the presence of a child. And then the second offense goes on to be banishment from the league. So right there, clearly, in this new rule, is in the presence of a child. This was done to a child. So it's clear to me that the NFL, I know they have a lot going on with all these issues, but in their perspective, no way he should be on the field. And in the Vikings' perspective, there's absolutely no logical reason for why he's back on the field this week. And someone tweeted up that, I'm blanking on the coach's name, so forgive me, but their special teams coach that had the controversial comments when Chris Cooley was up in arms about gay rights and the coach was talking about anti-gay slurs on the team. He gets reinstated this week. Adrian Peterson comes back from his deactivation from the past week. The Vikings seems to be going hand in hand with the NFL of doing everything possible that they can do wrong.
And as the GM said, they got this on Friday. They had to take a step back and look at all the facts. Well, they handled their personal business in 2 days. So, Friday, they handled it. Okay, Monday, they're ready to go again. It's just disgusting to me. And, I understand the notion of, disciplining your child, but when you're allegedly beating him with a tree branch, and I don't know if you saw some of the photos of just like this kid was bleeding. There's lacerations all over his back and legs.
Putting leaves in his mouth.
In his mouth. Like, that is just disgusting to me. And the fact that I applauded the Vikings on Friday, but the fact that they went back on their word is even worse. I mean, they had the appropriate punishment and just took it away because they want to win some football games.
And one of the worst things about it, beside the act of what was going on, I mean, the way that it's being handled, that is if this is a Vikings, and this is something that people have brought up before, but if this is a Vikings third string cornerback, he's not even being talked about. He's done.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's keeping Adrian Peterson on this team and playing a week after they had deactivated him, is the fact that, well, he's probably the best running back in the NFL. if he's almost anybody else, I mean, like we've seen it with Ray Rice in a situation where Ray Rice, he had early success in his career. He hadn't been too impactful, so we're at the end of the day, those decisions had been made. But for this situation, and if this were a person who didn't have nearly the impact that Adrian Peterson does on the football field, he's not on the team anymore. We're not talking about deactivating and figuring out he's not on the team, and it's only because of how important he is to that team on the football field that he's back, and it's ugly. It's really ugly for the team, and there's not a whole lot of way to spin that positively.
It just seems like teams and the league just need to reevaluate moral standards. I mean, there's just no. There's just no accountability for really any of these guys. I mean, we've talked about like Greg Hardy and Ray McDonald, both starters, both still on their teams. Ray McDonald played yesterday, didn't he? I mean, how long has this been since he got arrested? Yeah. Thank you, Austin Teitzma. But, I mean, at some point they need to realize that this is bigger than football. I mean, Peterson, in 3 years from now, 4 years from now, maybe he'll be done with football, but he'll still be a scumbag.
And it's saying to players, like, if you're good enough, essentially, you can beat your 4-year-old child, or you can beat your wife or girlfriend or anybody.
There's no accountability.
There's no accountability if you're good enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's not okay. That's just flat out not okay. And it's happening now.
And you look to Goodell to kind of jump in here. He didn't jump in as quickly as he could have with Ray Rice. Now has a chance here, but the owners are kind of going the same way he did of reactivating this player, and Goodell needs the owners' help to try to deal with the Ray Rice issue in that investigation. So then if he turns on another one this week, it's a conflict of interest in the worst way possible, and it's just so frustrating because you want to watch the games, and someone brought it up earlier today. As much as all this is going on, you have a great Sunday night football game last night that finally gets you back and focused on the game and what it is and how much fun it is. But then you come back today and you get this new report that Sam just mentioned here. You get a statement from Peterson saying, I'm just disciplining him the way I did. You get the statements from Charles Barkley a little bit earlier of, well, this is what occurs in the South. Yeah. These can't work as excuses. There's no excuses. And it's a 4-year-old child. I can't imagine what a 4-year-old could do that's so bad that you have to beat them like Adrian Peterson did. And I don't know if, all the facts that I showed are laid out in front of me, but on the surface, it just looks really bad for Adrian Peterson. It's another example of using these outlets, both, Twitter, social media, to get details, but through these court cases as well, finding out really who these guys are and who the NFL is employing, because it seems like you're allowing a lot of guys in this league that aren't deserving of it, and the fact that these guys come from these big-time college programs for football, it's really showing me they're learning nothing on the academic side of things to try to become a real human being in a functioning society. The fact that they're just going there, playing football, not learning the lessons they should be to move on from this, and it just keeps digging and digging into this big hole.
And I know we like to give Beckman a little grief, but since he's been here, the off the field stuff has been gone. Mm-hmm. I respect him 1,000-fold for that. There's been no off the field issues. They're setting records in the classroom. Now, are they good on the football field? No, not really. But at least he has those standards. But kind of changing subjects a little bit, we all agree there's no way Goodell keeps his job over this.
No, I think he does actually, but I don't think he should.
Right.
That's two different questions. I think he will though, because he has according to Jerry Jones, he has the owner's support 100%, and if he has the owner's support, then he's not going to go anywhere.
Right. I mean, but I think it's one thing, as horrible and grotesque as the Ray Rice situation is, there's still many members of football fandom that agree with the punishment that Ray Rice may have given just because of sexist views or what have you. But I don't think you can rally around a guy and a league that says it's okay to beat a 4-year-old child. And that one's much more difficult to defend if you're someone who believes in corporal punishment and of that nature. So, yeah, I think he should lose his job. But, again, like we mentioned last week, people are still going to watch the game. Had huge ratings last night. So, on that front of it, I don't know if he's forced out unless there's a big enough push and some aspect, because it's not going to be viewership or tickets.
And he's not going to resign.
Right.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Yeah. And that would be like the one way that, well, maybe he just realizes that it's time to step down, and he's not going to do that.
And when you're making
$44 million. I mean, it's like this. If you were in that situation, would you resign unless you had? And I mean, unless the only way that I would step down from that, I don't know how I'd see myself in this position. Right. But I'm just saying, he's in a relative. I mean, yeah, a lot of people dislike him now, but he's in still a pretty comfortable situation because at the end of the day, he has the power, and if the owners agree with him, then his job is fine.
I mean, this is just one of many just miscues in the Goodell era. I mean, we had the whole concussions thing a couple years ago with former players literally committing suicide because of brain trauma. I mean, that he tried to sweep that under the rug until it was finally thrown right in his face that concussions are a problem.
Right.
I mean, his just resume of work is just incompetence, and I don't know how they can get him out, but he has to be out. He's the worst sports commissioner that I've seen in my sports watching career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's difficult. And, you look at a guy like Goodell, and coming into the league, very highly touted, and comes in and sets the bar really high on holding players very accountable for their action on the field. And between fines and different measures of that, he really made sure that, hey, this isn't allowed in my league, and you're going to play that way. But then somehow that didn't translate to off the field. And it's just been a continuing downward spiral from there that I don't know how he digs himself up. I don't think he's going to resign like we've mentioned, but this has to be probably the worst 2 weeks with simultaneous occurrences in NFL history.
I mean, it was already like one of the, maybe they were calling the Ray Rice week the worst week. So then to have 2 weeks in a row of just embarrassment from the side of the NFL and the teams involved, or the Vikings, so the team involved, it's a rough time for those guys over there.
Goodell's more worried about giving fines for touchdown celebrations and things like that than disciplining players off the field.
Yeah, you can't dunk the football, but everything else is okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. It's now 7 o'clock, so unfortunately we have to stop talking, but that doesn't mean you can't stop following us. Stay tuned to @Illini Drive on Twitter for all your information, Daily Illini, @DI_sports, DailyIllini.com. Everywhere we'll have it covered throughout the rest of the week, because I know there will be more breaking news as this goes, as Sam just mentioned, maybe another charge against Adrian Peterson along with one of his other children. So, we thank you for tuning in to today's show. Remember, call in 217-337-1071. 337-1071 is the number to win a pair of Illinois football tickets. We have 2 to give away today right after the show. We'd like to thank Mason Monheim for his interview earlier in the day today, producer Torrance Sorrell, social media guru Jeff Omer, Urbana Public Television, which will re-air us at 9 p.m. every Wednesday, including this week. So, for Stephen Bourbon and Sam Sherman, I'm Joey Gelman. This is your home on the way home for Illini Sports and Champaign's alternative, WPGU 107.1.